Now let's talk about constructors. So when we use constructors, we're basically trying to set up a new instance of the class. So this is what's happening when we call, for example, A of yellow and true, down on this line. We're trying to set up that instance to have all the properties that it needs to have. This is kind of different from what we've done so far with dictionaries or lists, because in those cases, we could just write all the values we wanted in the dictionary or the list, all in the same line of code. But here we need to set each of the properties that our object is going to have into that instance of the class specifically. We do that using the init function, which is a function that every object should have. You can see this takes in 3 parameters: self, color, and isHappy. Color and isHappy are each properties of this class. They are attributes that it will have, and these will differ based on the class that you're writing. So in this case, our object can have a color such as yellow or blue, and it can be happy or not happy. Maybe it's some type of emoji. The first parameter, self, this is kind of different from anything we've seen so far, because you'll notice we don't pass in anything for self when we're calling a of the parameters down here, when we're implicitly calling init. And that's because self is actually a reference to that instance that we're creating. You'll see this in all of the functions that we'll look at later. Self is always going to be passed in first when we have a function in a class. And that instance, we can then modify to say this instance has a property color and set it equal to the color that's passed in as a parameter. As a parameter isHappy, and we can set it equal to that isHappy that was passed in. So when we run this code, you can see we can make 2 different instances of A1 and A2, where they each have a different color and a different happiness value. And the important thing to note here is that we do need to specifically set these to self.color in our code. If we don't do this, if, for example, we tried to just get rid of this line entirely, or maybe if we change the parameter to say my color and then just said color equals my color without setting it equal to self, this would not work the way we'd want, because then our object would not have an attribute color. We can only make sure it has that attribute if we set self.color equal to whatever we're passing in.